Thank you very much indeed, Lusk. Minister, your department showed during the pandemic how quickly you can respond with compassion and move the country forward at a time of crisis. Senator Clonan has come here with lived experience in disability. And I know on the other side of the House, Senator McGinn has got huge interest in disability issues and has often discussed her concerns with me. But I guess we're in a position that there's a green paper on the table with respect to long-term disability, and there are difficulties with it, and those difficulties need to be examined. So we need to establish, first and foremost, the green paper itself. Is it a consultation paper only that outlines one possible approach to achieving the aim of higher payments and better employment supports? Or could it be a sleight of hand purely to move something in that would ultimately work to the detriment of disabled people? And I see you shaking your head, Minister, and I do believe that you are concerned in this area. But disabled people have been at the bottom of the scale in this country for an awful long time, and when you see a paper like this coming along and you hear, for example, that the green paper is not actually part, or is the green paper actually part of a plan, or is it a draft proposal? You might clear that up for me when you're speaking. Katie Holland in the Irish Times said this proposal has the intention to radically overhaul payments for people with disabilities. That always sort of worries me when I hear statements like that. Will it radically overhaul them? Because when we look at it, the disability allowance, it's a paltry sum really for people who have huge issues. €220 per week is to be replaced by a slightly increased personal support payment. But the medical assessment component, this is one that I've got a huge problem with now. Medical assessment component is critical, right? The government can't get around to the fact that they'll be spending money that could be used to provide people with support. I think, I'm not sure, I had to be outside while Senator Clonan was speaking, but I think the problem we have is it's almost impossible to get medically assessed with the resources that are in the state at the moment. So we're putting a policy in place that won't be able to be implemented because we're not able to carry out the assessments. Then we have the benefits. We've been told that benefits will not be reduced, but people may be required to work if they land in Tier 1 or Tier 2 or 3. And if they can't work, there's the capacity or the possibility that they may lose benefits. And we need reassurances there. We need to know that nobody is ever going to finish up worse off as a result of this. In the UK, it did happen, and people and led people to working where they really weren't able to or weren't suitable to be working. The Irish version will have an appeals process and you're to be complimented for that. But how good and effective will the appeals process be? That's really important. Now, we're not claiming that the policy here is going to be identical to the one introduced in the UK by the Conservative Party. The same incentives are there, though, for a similar disaster. This policy is one that can only be successful if it determines that people are fit for work. If people do not comply with the department, they could, once again, be struck off, lose their benefits, and we need reassurances there. Otherwise, there's no point in spending large sums of money in trying to assess people. How am I doing? If someone has no choice but to opt into a programme for work benefits, they will be less likely to organise and demand better pay and conditions that would be available to non-disabled workers. When you're in a small minority group like that, your voice is lessened all of the time, and that's something that we've got to be deeply concerned about. Government a government in the future can engage in distortions as much as they'd like, but we can't get away from the fact that we have little interest. There has been little interest shown in people with disabilities. My friend and colleague, Senator Clonan, has the lived experience. He knows exactly what goes on in the system. The budget focused heavily on one-off payments, but it could have been used to introduce long-term sustainable change, something that would be, I suppose, more beneficial to those who are classified as disabled. And the other thing we have, my colleague Senator Byrne mentioned people with epilepsy. I've seen epilepsy up front, I've seen it close, and I've seen the damage it does to one's freedom to move around the country and things like that. So I'm here to support Senator Clonan. It's a pity there's a counter motion. It would have been nice if this went through as an agreed motion, but I guess there are lessons to be learned for all of us there. I do hope, Minister, you can do the right thing by this. I'd appreciate it.